Tradition is here, so for the fifth time we are looking at my setup. It all started on the 29th of December 2019. Today we will be looking at what changed in the last year, how things have improved or not, and what are the tools I'm using to test everything to release the videos. We'll start in a couple of seconds. To be honest, my setup has really been lacking the love in the last year or this year. Unfortunately, I've spent too much time working on reviews, testing devices, testing new things that I've never tested before, so the time that I usually spent working on my setup was poured into this channel. But nevertheless, there are some changes, not as many changes as the year before, especially not as many changes between the year 1 and 2 of my videos, but still there are some changes. Today we'll be looking at them, plus all the instances of Home Assistant that I actually maintain, both for recording, but also production versions, or the versions that I actually somehow use. So let's get started with my main setup. In terms of overall use, more or less everything stayed the same. There are a ton of new devices, of course, in my own setup, but that's something else. On the main page, everything that was here before is actually still here. Here, at a glance, I can see the camera feeds, the electricity usage or power usage in my home, which was expanded with additional sensoring capabilities or additional Shelly plugs that are now monitoring some things that were not monitoring a year before, such as, for example, recording desk, and this is this desk here where I'm recording, and the power usage while I'm recording. Then I have a data center power, which is also something that I'm now monitoring, that was not monitored a year before, although I did have all the plugs in. I just didn't have enough time to plug them in and set everything up. But one shocking realization did come this year, that I myself am the biggest power consumer. So from 487 watts of total power used currently, over 200 watts are burned on this desk here, with additional 120 watts going towards my Synology, routers, cameras, all the other networking equipment and services that are run either through the UPS or via the power over Ethernet. Yeah, so 2/3 of the power are consumed by me. The weather part didn't improve much, but one thing I'm still impressed is that my Luftdaten local, both are still working. Not the temperature and humidity sensors, it's died a year or something ago and I just don't see a purpose of rebuilding that one. But that's actually one of the first projects I did on this channel, DIY project, and it's still working and running great after 5 years. It is an open source project that allows you to contribute your own sensor data to the World Air Quality Index. If you didn't check that one out, go check it out. It's still working and it has a nice and easy integration with Home Assistant. In terms of the lights, not much has improved, although I do have some issues after the last update of my Shelly 2PM Gen 2 device. I'm not sure if this is related to that latest firmware or not, but somehow, while still working, it is now almost always in an unavailable state. Overall, Mero's outdoor plug is not a bad device. It is outdoor device, although weather protection could be better for the outdoor device. But one thing that makes this device different than other devices that I had previous years is that this one is now HomeKit compatible. Yes, now I also own iPhone. I myself own iPhone. That's actually the old iPhone from my daughter that I confiscated. I bought her a new one, and that means that now I have an Apple device to test everything with. But that's not all. I also bought the Apple smart speaker. That means that I have a constant connection between my Home Assistant and the HomeKit world. These two pages are almost the same. They are not the same because each one of them is a different room. These are the rooms for my daughters. Each one has its own tab where she can control the lights, control the heating, see the status for their school or university. If they take weight, the weight data will be visible here. If they measure the body temperature, it will also be visible here. For my youngest daughter, I also pull data for the mobile phone, much more data than I would normally pull for my mobile phone, because I'm tracking if she's spending too much time, if the mobile phone is turned on, off, is the music playing or not, etc. Plus, she also has this smart power strip in her room where I can control individual outlets, plus also the USB ports. Once again, it's a Mero smart plug, and yes, once again, it's a HomeKit compatible plug. Unfortunately, both with this plug here and the other that is outdoor one, I cannot measure the power consumption, but for everything that is plugged in here, I'm currently not interested in, to know the specifics. Also, both of those rooms have a lot of switchboard devices. Not a lot, actually. For example, they have door window sensor, which is tracking if the door is open, if there is a light in the room, and if there is a motion. Both girls have their curtains controlled via the switchboard, and both girls also have a switchboard remote to control the curtains independently of the Home Assistant. In the Media tab, once again, not a lot has changed, but some things are new. For example, this year brought us Android TV remote integration, which I've implemented here so I can control the device from within Home Assistant. I don't do that actually, and I don't see a purpose of controlling the device from within Home Assistant because it's just much easier to either use the voice on the remote or the remote itself, but I do have it. Also, thanks to the Johnny Bergdahl, I have a working YouTube integration. This shows me all the creators I'm following, their name, and the latest video that was released. Here I can also create automation that will notify me if the creator is streaming or not. By the way, what actually happened to my streams? I think I stopped streaming around the April, so it's been around 8 months without streams. I was even planning to do streams now between the Christmas and the New Year, but I got the flu, so yeah, let's scrap that idea and leave it for 2024. Indoor and outdoor climate card has also been improved, but actually there is only just one new device here, and that is the AC control, and I'm using the Tado once again to control my AC, and it is using the same cards as the new cards that were implemented, I think, in version 2023.11 or .12 of Home Assistant. Previously, I was using a simple thermostat HAX integration, but now I've switched to the stock one. Energy tab is looking more or less same as it was looking last year, with addition of some new devices. As I said, I'm tracking now more data, so I have information about data center, recording desktop, my scooter charger, AC power, and solar inverter power outlet. This is actually not the consumption, but the production from the power outlet. We also have a graph for self-consumption, but I'm not self-sufficient. My solar panel is still outside on the balcony. It is producing enough power during the summer, but during the winter, simply I cannot get anything out of it. Which reminds me that there are also a lot of improvements on this page here. Here I can track the total power produced by my solar panel, daily, monthly and yearly. The data here is not accurate, and that's unfortunately due to my issue because I didn't make a static IP address for my solar microinverter, and each time it changed the address, the system lost connection, and it took me days or weeks, multiple weeks for me to figure out something is wrong because I didn't do any notification on that error, so the data was lost. But still, I'm tracking the daily, monthly and yearly power produced by my solar panel. I can see the status of the inverter, is it on or off, how many hours in the last 24 hours it was producing electricity, average power, which takes some time to reset because I did something wrong, and maximum power produced in the last 24 hours. As you can see, although it is sunny outside, unfortunately, this is the maximum I can get from the solar panel that is in the shade. It doesn't look like a lot has changed, but actually it did. Last summer, or the summer of 2023, I went on a vacation, and the day before I went on a vacation, I shut down my old NAS. I thought that I didn't need it to work during my vacation. When I returned, I didn't turn it on, because actually I'm currently not using anything on it, and it was just wasting energy. So everything else here is the same. We have information about my new UPS that is giving me roughly 1 hour of autonomy if there is a power outage, and we just did have one recently. And I also track the information for my main instance, StoreJ node, MikroTik router, to see if the services are up and running. I didn't add any new cameras. There are currently 3 cameras working here. One is covering the balcony, the other one is covering the entrance, and the third one is covering the floor because I tipped it over and it's now looking directly at the wooden floor. But I did add some new motion sensors, and that's everything that's new on this page. My Voron 2.4 is still integrated inside Home Assistant, although I didn't spend that much time printing this year. Unfortunately, I simply didn't have enough time to print with it. I did use a resin printer, the Creality resin printer, and I did test some other printers, but I really wish I had more time. Maybe I should ditch this whole YouTube things and have more time to play with the 3D printing. I'm still tracking the filament temperature and humidity for 6 boxes for 6 different colors. I track the power usage of the printer, I can see the state, I can get a G-code preview if something is printing, etc. But the page and integration stay the same. Plants tracking is also the same as it was previously, except I have one new sensor. This one is a Zigbee soil sensor. I'm not that happy with that one because it's using the old version of the firmware and I cannot find the new firmware to install it manually on it, so I'm stuck with the old version that has issues with the power consumption. Also here I only see humidity and temperature of the soil plus battery level, and I really wish there was a lux sensor on it so I can match the data I get from my old hydro boards. And when we are talking about the hydro boards, yeah, I'm really not happy with them anymore. I would like to replace them with something more permanent, either be it a Zigbee version or the Bluetooth version of the soil sensors. And this is something that I will be doing in 2024. There are a couple of reasons. First of all, I'm sick and tired of manually compiling the firmware via the ESP Home for the boards. This one here is still using the original Pessers, and thank you Pesser once again for creating that firmware. I simply do not want to play and tweak the ESP Home version of the firmware because it either works perfectly but then I have connection issues, or I don't have connection issues but the battery lasts 3 or 4 days. This is not something that I want to do or recharge once or twice a week. And also one thing is gone. Unfortunately, I do not have a watering station. That is the DIY watering station, the Zigbee DIY watering station I made. There is also a video on this channel, I presume, about it, because this year we installed the AC, and AC had to be installed in the place where the watering station and the big bucket with water was located. So I had to remove them. They could potentially still work, or actually they would still work, but I simply decided that I don't want to go that route. The battery card, the card that I also featured in one of my last videos, is still the same, although a lot more devices have been added. I've also implemented the battery node, and from the information or tip I got just yesterday from the author of the battery card, it looks like the battery card and battery nodes will be getting a little bit more integration. So for example, in the future, I don't know, we will see how it goes. If you click on this battery information here, you would also see information on when the battery was last changed and what battery actually is inside the device. And this will really improve the quality of life of everybody who is using battery powered devices. And I do have a lot of them here. My Evil Bunker project, I didn't do a video on it for a long time, and I should probably prepare a couple of Evil Bunker ideas or projects for the next year. But that's a future me issue, future me ideas, so we will not be talking about them. I'm still tracking here the earthquakes, if there are any major disasters, radiation levels, but what is gone is open sky or tracking of the airplanes in the sky. I simply got tired of receiving notifications about them. There are two ways on how to fix the problem: just disable the automation or completely remove the integration. I always forgot to disable notifications, so I just rage quit and removed the integration itself. The bugs tab shows me all the bugs in my system. Well, actually not bugs, but give me insight in my own setup. I can see if there are any updates available, which I will be changing for the next video because the 2024.1 release of Home Assistant is bringing us something that I will be implementing here. I also have information about the number of errors in my log files. I have currently over 11,000 of warnings and 30,000 errors. Yeah, this is something that I should probably work on. I also have 49 missing entities, and these are the stats for my system. These stats here are manually copied on my GitHub repository, and I try to update them at least once a month. So you should always get a pretty close idea on how many automations, sensors, entities, lines of code, scripts, switches are in my own setup if you go to my GitHub repository. Shelly still has its own personal page in my setup, and this is something that is getting Thanos removed in the next year because I really do not need it. Here at a glance I can see information for all of my Shelly plugs, relays, whatever I have installed at home. And actually I don't use it, so this is something that will be going away. My robot vacuum is still using the Xiaomi app, and the Xiaomi Hex integration for the Roborock. I still haven't dared to remove it from the Xiaomi app, add it to the Roborock app, and then do the integration in Home Assistant, but maybe this is something that I will be doing in the next year. I really wish that the SwitchBot K10, the other vacuum that I'm currently using and preferring, would have some kind of integration in Home Assistant. Hopefully, if everything is correct and the information I got from SwitchBot is correct, it will be receiving the Matter support next year. And with that Matter support, I hope to be able to add it to my Home Assistant. And more or less this is it about my setup. As I said, I didn't do much in terms of the improvements in the UI, but I did add a couple of automations, especially automations for the newly added devices. And if we go to my Zigbee to MQTT, we can see that my Zigbee network has been expanded. It now has 70 devices. Actually, it had more. I just did a bit of cleaning and removed all the devices that I know will not be used anymore. On my desk currently I think there are at least 10 or 12 Zigbee devices that are destined to be tested, but those will be tested with the other instances. I'm still using the /cc2652RB stick to control my network, and thanks to one of my latest videos, I did install the latest firmware on it. Actually, I installed the latest firmware on all of my sticks, and I have a couple of them. I have SkyConnect, I have two Sonoff sticks, I have CC2652 stick, and I also have this, and this will be theme of one of my next videos. This is either USB or PoE powered, yes, Zigbee coordinator. When we are already talking about the testing and the coordinators and hubs and things like that, okay, the question is, do you know how many instances of Home Assistant I'm actually running in terms of the production? So these are not the test environments. I'm talking here about production environments. At this moment, I have 3 of them. This is my main setup. Then I have a setup that is run over Nabucasa. This is a remote setup that's actually sitting on my desk. I have a TP-Link router. That router has inside itself 5G or 4G SIM card. And I must thank the eIoT Club for sending me the SIM card for testing. And I promise I will be doing video in the future on how and why or should you do a remote setups with Home Assistant via the 3G, 4G or 5G network. But as I said, this is the independent instance. It's not connected to my network. It doesn't see devices that exist on my network, but it's actually sitting on my desk. And if you're interested, it's using generic hardware. The question is what generic hardware in this case is. It's actually Zima board. It has been converted successfully to run fully Home Assistant OS. It has a SkyConnect stick on it, and whenever you see that I'm testing something with SkyConnect, no, actually this is not this instance. But besides this instance that is sitting on my desk but is actually a remote site for me, I also have one additional site that is actually remote for me. And here we are talking about my summer house. This instance also doesn't have a lot of love, because I do not have a lot of devices there, but I get everything that I want to see. For example, I can see the internet speed, I can see if there is any lightning storm, I can control or turn off and off power of the PoE cameras, weather information, the status of my Raspberry Pi that is running that system, the status of the Synology, because yes, there is also Synology that is used as a surveillance station. We get the camera stream and the information about the possible solar production, because still we haven't installed any solar power there. But at least I can see the trends and statistics here of how it would look if I would have solar panels there. So besides those 3 systems, main, remote and actual remote system that I'm managing, updating, checking out things, etc., I also have a couple of recording instances. And the next one is the system that you usually see in my videos. And that's this one here, Home Assistant running on Home Assistant Yellow. Or how you usually see it, something like this. This is the system that I use for the recording, and this is the system that you usually see in my videos. But actually there are 2 systems. This system here and this system here. What is the difference? Except that maybe some device may be missing or unavailable currently. Well, actually, if we go to Settings, System, Hardware, we can see that this system is running on Home Assistant Green, while other system is running on Home Assistant Yellow. Yes, I have both systems running. And what I did here is I took a snapshot of the yellow, moved it to the green, so now I have 2 different systems or different hardwares running the same configuration. And I use that to test the differences in performance between the yellow and green. In my opinion, although this yellow machine has less RAM than the green machine, it's still performing better. And there is also one additional difference, or two additional differences. This one has internal Sky Connect, it has a Matter support enabled, but it also has Thread support enabled, and something that arrived just a couple of days ago, also Z-Wave support now. Yes, my home finally has Z-Wave support. So if in the future I receive any devices that are Z-Wave based devices, I can now test them with my test setup. So we have three systems, let's call them main production, two recording systems, plus, do you remember Son of iHost? Well, actually, if we go to Docker, yes, I have Home Assistant running there, and this is this instance here. In terms of performance, it is satisfactory. It's not the crazy fast machine, but it's still working for everybody that wants to do Home Assistant on the iHost. This is the original iHost firmware with the Home Assistant running in Docker. But besides that, I also have a TerraMaster NAS, and that one is also running Home Assistant in a Docker, this instance here. So overall, it looks like I have 3 production setups, 2 recording setups, and 2 additional Home Assistances running at each point in time. A lot of power consumption. Well, actually not that lot, but still a lot of power consumption. The question is why I have all of those systems. Each one of them has something different. For example, if I do Son of devices, I can test them on the iHost. I test them also with their bridge, and I'm using the Zigbee Bridge Pro version to test the devices in the EV-Link app. Then I have a Tuya app, and I'm using the generic Tuya Zigbee Bridge to test that. And that's, if I'm not mistaken, the most bridge I'm using here. But I also have from ZemiSmart the Matter Hub, the latest Matter Hub they released, and this is something that I'm using to test the Matter devices in my setup, or one of the recording setups. Besides that, I also have a SwitchBot Hub, the version 2, with a display temperature and humidity sensor, plus Matter support. And yes, that means that I have 3, or if you count the iHost 2, 4 hubs sitting on my desk that are exclusively used for testing. Besides that, as I mentioned, this year I also bought the Apple iPod, so finally I have a permanent smart speaker on my desk that is also used as a hub. I still have on my desk NS Panel Pro that is used for testing purposes, although actually I'm not using it for testing anymore. I'm now using it because I love the Star Trek themed interface I have on it. So a lot of devices, a lot of power consumption, a lot of testing. But no matter if you throw Tuya, ZemiSmart, Mouse, Sonoff, SwitchBot, all of those devices can now be testing, no matter if they are Wi-Fi or Zigbee, if they are working with Thread, if they are working with Matter, or just plain old devices. But that's not all. I have also one additional device I'm currently testing that I cannot talk more about it, although some of the information is publicly available, and that is the light version of the local hub from eVVR. That is something that we'll be doing video in the next year. So how do I see 2023 and what do I expect of year 2024? Well, I did turn 50 last year, so I'm now wiser and you should listen to what I have to say. Just kidding, I'm no more smarter than I was a year earlier. What I loved about the year is of course the year of the voice, although this was something that I didn't put too much effort in testing because I was waiting for the last chapter which we received in December, and some final results with the devices that you can use to replace your Google Mini speakers. Would I go the Mark Watt way? Would I replace the boards in my Google Minis? No, there is a big difference between the local voice in Home Assistant and Google Smart Speakers. I need Google Smart Speakers because I need connection between the Google accounts, Google information, and the things that I want to do inside and outside of my home. If I replace them with Home Assistant, although I will get more privacy than with Google of course, I will be losing half, if not 80% of the functionality of the mini speaker. There is a place in this world for both smart speakers from the Google, Amazon or Apple, and also local only smart speakers for Home Assistant. But those will never be the same. No, Home Assistant local voice will never replace the speakers, and these speakers will never replace Home Assistant. They are two independent worlds. So while I'm looking forward to testing more of the year of the voice next year, I will not be replacing my smart speakers with Home Assistant. At least not in a lot of places. what I know that 2024 will bring me, it will bring me a lot more devices to test. I will be more focusing on the Matter. Yeah, I know that a lot of creators have created the Matter is good, Matter sucks, Matter works, Matter doesn't work, it supports, blah blah blah. But it's like people trying to test the Cybertruck from Tesla before it was even released. Sure, the Matter standard was actually released, but it was in a beta and I'm still considering to be in a beta. And testing Matter and saying that Matter is good or bad while it's currently in the beta, I don't think that it gives any value both to the users watching the videos, to the people that are testing it, or to the Matter standard itself. I always like to wait until the lunch is cooked before trying and commenting it. So next year I will be focusing more on the Matter and seeing if after 2 years it has finally matured, if the firmwares are now working as they should, and is the standard giving us something that we are expecting from it or not. The next thing I'm looking forward to is the year of the... Let's leave this line blank for Home Assistant. I bet that the next year will bring us a lot of changes to the UI. But remember people, smart home shouldn't even need UI. What I'm expecting to see in year 2024 or year 2025 from Home Assistant is that it finally becomes smart home. And what I mean by that? For example, today we add devices Home Assistant. And that's everything we should really need to do in a smart home. We shouldn't need to create automations. Let's look at this case for example. If, by some miracle, Home Assistant manages to implement something like OpenAI but locally, and gets brain, what the process of onboarding should look like. You add door window sensor, name that sensor front door. The Home Assistant then asks you, oh, I see that you have a new sensor called front door. Do you want me to create some out-of-box automations for it? For example, you get notified if the front door is left open, if somebody is opening the door and there is nobody at home, etc. And you say yes, and Home Assistant creates automations for you. This is what a smart home should look like. I know that there are a lot of people bragging with the automations they create, even I myself brag about them, create a lot of scripts, create blueprints, but this is something that actually Home Assistant as a smart home platform should do by its own. It should know the domain of the devices that have been added. And by knowing the domain of the device that has been added, it should tell you what it has in store for you or what it can do for you. Something similar like Google Home or Amazon smart speakers tell you when you add a device. They say, try this. And this is something that Home Assistant should start implementing, I hope, very soon. I'm not saying that they will, but it should. And this will be make or break for smart homes in 2024. But this video has been long enough. I really wish all of you, your friends and your families, happy, prosperous, safe, healthy and secure New Year. Plus, I want to say thanks to all those wonderful people that have been supporting me for a long time by becoming a YouTube channel members. Thank you all for all of your support. But as I said, I also want to thank each and every one of you who has watched, liked, subscribed, commented or shared my videos. If you too want to support the channel, go out, have fun with your family and friends. I will be seeing you next time. Until then, bye bye and Happy New Year.